All right, I am live a couple minutes early because I want to get the tech down because that is not my strong point. Waiting for Brittany Page, her computer the delay for me to be able to hear whether the audio is working. So we'll wait for that. All right, and then she's going to talk into her mic.
And talking into my mic.
All right. Okay. Good deal. Wait for some people to show up while I share it with different social networks. No, just my personal page and then my personal Twitter. So hey everybody. Let's get going here. So it is I'm going to stop looking at this screen and start looking at you. Give me 1 second here. So I just shared it with my personal social network. If you would do the same, that would be great. Kind of spread the word. If you know somebody who watches the show or would be interested, that would be awesome. We are here at the 1 year mark. So I thought it would be fitting to do a live stream today about that. Take your questions, generally discuss, as well as you can discuss on YouTube. I don't mind some back and forth, that's great. But it's been a wild ride. I do plan on doing this more often, the live streams, because I want to interact more with you guys. I have kind of cobbled together somewhat of a team that will moderate in the comment section, and then also going forward, I want to build a community around what we do here on YouTube. And that means maybe giving less time to the trolls. Look, I don't mind dissension if you've taken part at all in the comments over the course of the last year and a half, 2 years on the channel. You know that I don't censor. I let people be as shitty and as hateful as they choose to be. But going forward, I'm going to be more careful about it because I want this to be a community effort. And sometimes wading through all the bullshit can be a bummer. So we're going to be a little bit more aware of that. And I would love to take suggestions on that as well. So does anybody have any questions as we get started here? The lovely Brittany Page, who you can't see, who is on the other side of the camera, you can hear her.
Yes, you can.
She will be reading the questions so I hear them, and then also so you hear them and know to what I am responding. So are there any questions yet?
Well, Chad says that he loves the trolls.
Oh, well, there is something to be said. Look, I'm going to leave some of them there, but if a troll's specific purpose, and I also want to have a loose definition of what a troll is. Someone who just disagrees, that's fine. I don't mind mixing it up and talking about the differences that we have. If their intent is earnest, and if their intent is not just to be a dick face. If they're there just to be an asshole, then I don't feel like I need to give them time. But if someone really wants to have a discussion about our disagreements, well, I'm okay with that.
So Raw H has a question. This government shutdown, do you think the Democrats are going to cave in and give the Republicans their legislative deal?
It doesn't appear as though they are. I think this ultimately last night was a game of chicken where the Democrats were going to prove to the Republicans that they were here to fucking play games. They were here to play ball. It is dangerous. It's very dangerous because, and now I'm just talking about politics here, not about the actual effects of a government shutdown, because those are pretty small ultimately, because government workers are going to end up getting their back pay. This is going to be a paid vacation for them. There will be some inconvenience. I've had some listeners to the podcast and also some viewers here on the YouTube channel who have reached out and taken pictures and shared with us that there are, we have some people who listen to the show in Arkansas, and they were at the hot springs, and they shared a picture of a sign that said you can't get water from the hot spring in Arkansas because of the money. So they've just shut the water off. There are minor inconveniences like that, but overall, there's not going to be a crazy effect that's felt. But back to the politics, they have let the Republicans know they're going to play ball. And I think that now that the Republicans know, and also that this period of 24 hours or so, that they know just how the polls are coming down, how this is shaking out relative to public opinion, and that it is overwhelmingly not playing out well for the Republicans. That was my concern going into this, that I thought the Democrats should be very careful. But, they gambled, they wagered, and they were banking on the fact that Donald Trump's bad reputation, his historically low approval rating, would play in their favor. And I think it did. So I hope that answered the question.
So we have a question from M.I.K. Jeezy. I don't know if that's Mike Jeezy or Mick Jeezy. Are you still blocked by the president?
I am still blocked by the president. Let me very quickly go to my Twitter account.
And I guess a follow-up question on that could be, how do you deal with not being able to see his tweets? Because that's obviously something that's important, is being able to see what the president is tweeting, and you can't do that when you're logged into your Twitter. So how do you get around that, and is that difficult? Kind of talk about that.
Real Donald Trump. Real quickly, there's the president. They're not in my account. This is taking way too long. It is a pain in the ass, because I like to see what our president is saying. I like to know. Hang on a minute. I don't know if you can see, or if it's just a blank or screen that's shining, but that is it. I am still blocked. It is a pain in the ass, because I like to see what the president says. I like to respond to what the president says. I like to engage in government, and that's ultimately what you're doing if you reply to Donald Trump. He is the president of the United States. He has taken a solemn oath to support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic. And he has swore, the faith and allegiance to the same, and all the things that come in the oath. And part of the Constitution, a very vitally important part of the Constitution, is one, redress of your government, and also the freedom of speech. Part of the freedom of speech is being able to voice your opinion to your elected officials. And he has taken that away from me. There is a lawsuit against him right now by the White Free Speech Organization, the White Knight Free Speech Organization, or just the Knight Organization, which is part of Columbia University. And there are several members who have taken the suit to court to try to get them unblocked. But I have another account. I have @Dollemore, which is somewhere here on the screen. But then I also have @Jesse Dollemore, which I tried to secure so trolls wouldn't get at it and then be able to tweet dumb shit from me. And so I tweet from there, and I can see his tweets from there. There's also the podcast account @IDoubtItPodcast, so I can log on to that and see what he's saying. So Brittany, also my co-host on the podcast. And by the way, if you're not subscribed to the podcast, everyone needs to know This on YouTube is not the podcast. The podcast is an audio thing. Occasionally we live stream, but what we're doing on the podcast is not here. But Brittany also alerts me, and her Twitter is at Brittany E. Page. Brittany E. Page. She'll type it in.
Yeah, I will. After I read this question.
Next question.
From David. Can you talk about the Navy SEAL racist rants? I want the point of view from someone who has
Carl Higbee.
An honorable discharge.
Well, he does too. Carl Higbee has an honorable discharge. But this is something I talk about, one, on the podcast, but occasionally I'll mention it on the Dollemore Daily or here on YouTube. And that is that just because you put on the uniform doesn't mean you're honorable. I served with a lot of people who were pieces of shit in the Marine Corps. Just because you put it on doesn't not using Tommy Lahren logic. As soon as you put on that uniform, you're a hero. Well, that's not the truth. You have people who leave who have terrible racist views, like this guy who's named Carl Higbee, who just had to quit his job because it was revealed, which we're going to be talking about on the show tomorrow, all of the hateful shit that he said about his beliefs about, blacks in America and how they're leeching off the system and just horrible racist things. It's
making noise.
Oh, the mic is?
So just be careful.
Oh, my foot's on it. Sorry, guys. Yeah, it's terrible. More people need to judge people based on who they are, the content of their character. Discussion. There is something to be said about that, because just because you were in the Navy and just because you were a Navy SEAL doesn't make you awesome. It doesn't make you noble. It doesn't make you of good character. There's a lot of people who are no good on both sides of politics who served. So I would like to think I'm one of the good ones. But that's not the case. And I don't just mean Republicans, because not all Republicans are terrible people. It's shaking out the way now that we're in a place where you need to pick sides. If you're on the side of Donald Trump, there are fewer and fewer legitimate reasons to be a Trump supporter. I would say it's dwindling down to no good, because if you still are, it means that racism and bigotry are not a deal breaker for you, and that's a problem. So, are there any other questions?
Kenneth wants to know, do you think Ivanka Trump will run for president?
I don't know. I think it's too early to be talking about people running for president in general, whether it be Adam Schiff or Kamala Harris or Cory Booker or Bernie Sanders again, or fucking Oprah. All of that I think is a little early. I think we need to stay focused and not get distracted with all of that, because right now there are some very serious things. I mean, it's great to have a conversation about it. Oh, who would be great? Kind of pie in the sky. It's like talking about what you'd do with lottery winnings if you happen to win the lottery. But I don't. Right now, I don't care, because it's so hypothetical. I think she would be terrible because she has proven her character in supporting her. There's one thing to support your family and to be supportive, but there's another thing when your father is the president of the United States and you have showed that it doesn't matter what your previously held ideologies were, that you're going to sell yourself out and support a man who is dangerous for the country. That's a problem. So I certainly wouldn't support her candidacy, obviously.
So Bella wants to know, what do you think about the clean bill of health the White House doctor recently gave to 45? Do you think it's credible?
Clean bill of health, no. I mean, I'm not a doctor. I'm going to take Ronnie Jackson's word for it that he's fit for office. But being fit for office doesn't mean that you're a triathlete. Donald Trump is clearly not in good shape. He's an old man. He's like, 40% of America, which is obese, and I could lose some weight. So I'm not gonna. My concern was, is he in dire medical need? I don't think so. I also don't think he's mentally unfit. And as Democrats and as progressives and as resistors to Donald Trump and his administration, we can't have it both ways. We can't have it that this man is insane and also have it that he is calculating and sinister in his motivations. Those two things, it's either he's insane and we need to get him out of here because he can't function in the job, or he knows what he's doing and we need to get him out of there because he knows what he's doing and he's dangerous and he's colluded with Russia and all of the things. We don't want to give him the out to be able to claim insanity. I'm not guilty because I was insane at the time. I think, is he out of shape? Yeah. But how in shape do you have to be president? So that's how I feel about it, Bella.
So I am new to this whole chat thing and YouTube, but I believe that Linda just gave $20.
Oh, wow, Linda.
Yeah, and
Linda Klein.
Yes.
That is awesome.
Yeah, so that little notification popped up. So that's very nice. Thank you, Linda. She, in her comment, part of it said Trump tried to get Marla to abort Tiffany. I think that's in reference to a Howard Stern appearance.
Yeah.
And people started talking about that after the speech he gave at the March for Life.
The speech. First of all, Linda, thank you very much for the generous super chat, I think it's called. That is beautiful and awesome. Look, Donald Trump, especially where it relates to the abortion comments, Donald Trump has never had. See, this is another thing. I don't chalk Donald Trump's ridiculous multi-position attitudes about abortion, for instance, on the fact that he is in diminished cognitive decline. I think it's just because he has no soul. He has no moral stance on really just about anything other than the fact that I do believe he is a racist and he wants to surround himself with people who are racist. The abortion thing, we can only go on what he said, on what his public comments are. And when he has gone on Howard Stern, that's not just for effect. When he says things about trying to convince Marla Maples, his second wife, that he wanted to abort the fetus at the time, Tiffany, that's a problem. It's not a problem that he would try to want to have terminate a pregnancy, so to speak, or per se. But it is a problem when now he is trying to take away the right of women to make that same choice. For me, a lot of this, where it relates to Donald Trump, is a problem of hypocrisy. It's a problem that he ran his goddamn mouth for years about Barack Obama playing golf, and now golfed almost 100 times in his first year in office. It's the hypocrisy that is terrible. Anyway, thank you, Linda. We appreciate you very, very much.
So Sarah says, how do you see the American political system changing? Do you think the Republican Party is going to run into the ground? Do you see third-party candidates finally coming to the table? Your thoughts?
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's going to get worse before it gets better, unfortunately. I would love to say that everyone's going to come to their senses and realize that Donald Trump was dangerous for America and Donald Trump was damaging for America. But I don't think that's the case. I think it's going to get worse before it gets better. As far as a third party is concerned, there would need to be a viable third party option. I've talked about in the past that I used to have kind of romantic ideas about libertarianism, that, each and every one of us for ourselves and be able to make decisions for ourselves. And, there's kind of there's an appeal to that. Now, functionally, it doesn't work at all. There are people out there who can't perform for themselves, who need a little hand up, and the rest of us need to step up and help those who are having a hard time. Anyway, all that to say that until we get a viable third party, and I don't see that there is one right now, I don't know what everybody's feelings are on the Green Party candidate. What was her name?
Jill Stein.
Jill Stein. But I don't believe she was viable. I believe that she was just as unviable, just as problematic as Gary Johnson was with the Libertarians. So until we get a third party that's going to do something, for me, it's the Democratic Party. And they still make mistakes and blunders. So there's no perfect system. There's no perfect situation. There's no perfect solutions. We need to work with what we have.
So Shonda wants to know, what do you think about the porn star fiasco? Are you pro porn star fiasco?
Well, let me tell you, God, this is a remarkable situation that we're in. That Donald Trump, with all of his faults and all of his obvious problems, imagine, let's not even say if Barack Obama, imagine if Bill Clinton, with all of his faults and all of his problems, if there were porn stars, multiple porn stars coming out, and there were credible pieces of evidence that he had paid them $130,000 in hush money, the world would have been on fire. But because it's Donald Trump and there are so many other things to talk about, excuse me, and there are so many other things that he has done that are terrible. I mean, colluding with a hostile foreign enemy. It makes porn star, that's not so bad. He's calling Kim Jong-un Rocket Man and fat and all these things, bringing us to the brink, closer to the brink of nuclear war than we've been in a generation, 2 generations. So porn star, doesn't look so bad. So do I think it's bad? Yeah, I think it's terrible. Trying to silence people, trying to hide the truth around your behavior and your moral content, it's a problem.
So Misha said that whole pro-life speech was a smokescreen for the porn star thing. That's her opinion.
I don't disagree. I don't know that I agree 100%, but it wouldn't surprise me if that was the case.
And then just a couple of comments, not necessarily questions, but some comments from people that have been writing. David says, I worked in Camp Pendleton as a civilian, and yes, sir, you are correct that there is still racist thinking in the military.
For sure.
Lisa says, all he cares about is himself and how he looks to other people.
Is Lisa said that?
Yes.
I would agree with you, Lisa, but I would say this. Donald Trump he's in fight or flight mode now. He's in desperation mode. So even like the Washington Post just had a story talking about the reason he did this whole thing about the government shutdown. It's been reported that he's talked to friends saying a government shutdown would be good for me. Not good generally politically, but it would be good because his base will feel emboldened, that 32% of the alt-right that still supports him, that problematic portion of the American electorate that still is in the camp of Donald Trump, they will be refreshed. Oh, he is on our side. You know, after he said all this shit recently about shitholes and all of that, the Daily Stormer, the KKK, the far-right extremist white supremacist website, had an op-ed, if you want to call it an op-ed, some ding-dong is blogging, saying that he's got to be quiet. They understand what he needs to do, but ultimately, fundamentally, he does feel the way they feel. They believe that. And Donald Trump knows that this government shutdown and these strident positions, hurtful, harmful, dangerous positions about immigration, are ultimately going to be good for him with that Pepe the Frog portion of the electorate.
So Brenna says, hey, Jesse, where did you get that shirt?
Oh, the shirt. Where did I get the shirt? I think it's in the info. You can go to dollemore.info, Brenna. And also you can get mugged. These are podcast-related items, not YouTube-related items. But if you wanted to support the show and you're not in a position to go to Patreon, which is another way that you can support our work here on YouTube and the podcast, you can go to dollemore.info for the shirts. You can go to dollemore.com/Patreon if you wanted to join the Patreon family, where we do Google Hangout calls. We can actually I don't have Brittany reading questions behind the mic, behind the camera. We actually interact, so it's a good time.
So Misha says, I may get heat for this, but if everyone still sees Bill Clinton as a violating sexual deviant, why is Trump not held to the same standard? People still want to roast Clinton on coals for Monica.
I don't know, but I will say this, and I always catch heat when I say this. I believe that Bill Clinton is an abuser of women. I believe he should have been held accountable, and he should still be held accountable for the things he did. Any college professor, tenured college professor, would be fired for doing what he did with Monica Lewinsky, who might have been an adult. Yeah, that's fine, but he's in a position of power. That's a problem. So I don't want to be called a hypocrite, and I don't hold hypocritical views on it. If I believe that Bill Clinton, if I believe that Donald Trump should be held accountable for the things, his crimes against women, his victimization of women, then I'd better hold myself to the same standard where it relates to Bill Clinton, and I do. With this Me Too movement and all of these revelations that have been made about everybody from Woody Allen to, Harvey Weinstein, even a guy that I really, really loved and thought and still think is a talent, Louis C.K., that guy needs a timeout. He needs to be held accountable. There needs to be some justice. And if that means he takes, 5 or 10 years off, where he needs to think about what he did, then that's what needs to happen. I hope that answered your question.
So I apologize because I'm likely not going to say this name correctly. Chioma Johnson wants to know, do you think that with everything that he's done so far, that he will ever be impeached?
Yes. However, my feeling on it is that he will end up resigning like Nixon did, because the writing on the wall is just so bold and he knows he's going to go down. And Donald Trump would not fare well in prison. So really nobody fares well. It's a bummer. But I think what's going to happen is the Democrats are going to take over the House very well. They're very likely they're going to take over the Senate in 2018. And we're going to see a shift in the amount of cooperation that the legislative branch is allowing relative to these investigations. Right now you've got Devin Nunes, who is from somewhere around here in California where I live. And he's forwarding this idea, floating this idea out there about this memo that is supposed to indict the FBI and their behavior during the campaign. That is what somebody mentioned, a smokescreen. That is a smokescreen. Nothing is going to come from that. Devin Nunes is a patsy for Donald Trump. It was shown. He lost, effectively, he lost his chairmanship because of his allegiance to Donald Trump and not allegiance to the truth. That is what he's doing. That's all it is a distraction. And it is disgraceful that Republicans are not more concerned about the problematic relationship that Donald Trump still has to Vladimir Putin, not criticizing the behavior of Russia, not criticizing their involvement, trying to usurp the independence of our election in 2020. It's goddamn ridiculous. It's concerning. So I hope that wasn't too much of a rant.
So Skylark has a comment about Donald Trump's tweet. So I'm going to read her comment and then read his tweet and then give you a chance to give your perspective.
Let's hear them.
Trump's tweet about the Women's March was incredibly cringeworthy, and he is misogynistic, arrogant, and wanted to use them to gain more attention.
Yes.
Sad. So this is what he tweeted. Beautiful weather all over our great country. A perfect day for all women to march. Get out there now to celebrate the historic milestones and unprecedented economic success and wealth creation that has taken place over the last 12 months. Lowest female unemployment in 18 years.
Right. So my take, I'm no Trump whisperer. Thank God I'm no Trump whisperer. But this seems to me like a grade school, yikes, I got stung by a bee like 10 minutes before It was 10 minutes before we started the live stream, so I'm keep futzing with my finger. This seems to me to be like an elementary school level intellect trying to put it in the heads of women who are marching that, oh, if Donald Trump thinks that we're out here supporting him, so I'm not going to show up, which is just, I mean, laughably stupid. Look, in a lot of ways, Donald Trump is a laughably stupid individual. And if he thinks that works, I don't know. It's just ridiculous. So I agree with your comment. All right.
So a question from Raw. Do you think today's protests marches is a good measure on people standing against Trump?
Yes. Yes, I do. I believe that any activism where it relates to resisting this administration is a good thing. And I love when the en masse protests happen. I love when people get out there and let their voices be heard, because if anything, it's not just that it's discouraging to the administration, it's encouraging to other people. It encourages other people who might be feeling down and less energized about their resistance. If you're feeling like, oh man, the energy has been, the oxygen has been sucked out of the room and the energy has left the movement, and then you see hundreds of thousands of people getting out there and raising their voices, it's got to buoy your emotion a little bit. It does for me. I love when I see people getting out there and being loud and aggressive and proud about their opposition. I think it's great.
Marlon wants to know, do you think we'll go to war with North Korea?
No, I don't. Ultimately, I believe that, it doesn't mean that 100% no. It just means, given everything that I know right now, and also given the mild diplomatic alignment that has happened between North and South Korea over the Olympics, I think that we have leaders in place through James Mattis, Marine General, who is widely accepted as an honorable, noble man, a very smart, a tactician, a very smart man, not just about military matters, but about diplomacy. If any of you, first of all, let me say this. If there's anybody out there who is a voracious reader who would like to learn about these types of things, a lot of people talk about a book called a book written by Sun Tzu, The Art of War. But there's a better book, I believe, that is more modern and talks about diplomacy also. And it's called On War by Karl von Clausewitz. That is the book to read. It is taught in war colleges all across the Western world, and it is beautiful. And James Mattis is a man who understands diplomacy as an arm, or who understands the Department of Defense and the military as an arm of diplomacy, because that is what it is. Because ultimately, we want a non-military solution. So back to the question, why do I not think that, if I'm being too long-winded, Brittany, just tell me to shut the fuck up.
I think you're doing good, but I do want to say, keep the questions coming. Keep them coming.
Yeah, keep them coming. Brittany's got a piece of paper. She's writing them down. Do you need a pen?
Well, if you're going to say I have a piece of paper and I'm writing them down, I should probably actually have those
things. So
the
reason I don't think that we are going to go to war with North Korea is because I think that there are clear-headed, saber-rattling morons who are in positions of power and influence, more importantly, of influence around President Trump, like James Mattis, like McMaster. I think that, and I've said this on the record or on the podcast certainly for a long time, that I believe that General Kelly is a problem because he is a follower. He is not a leader of men, not anymore. He is now a follower and a patsy for the President of the United States. And he might be trying to create some order within the administration, but ultimately he is there to fulfill the wishes of Donald Trump, who is there to fulfill the wishes of people like Steve Bannon and Stephen Miller.
So we have a question from this is what I'm assuming the username is. Sobi Suchim. Okay. Is it possible to prevent Trump from granting pardons to his cabinet, family, and cronies? Could his pardons be reversed?
I am no lawyer, but there are limitations to the pardon power of the President of the United States. So the way I understand it, not being a lawyer, is that if these pardons were put in place to obstruct the investigation into Donald, he cannot pardon people in an act of obstruction of justice. So like Arpaio's pardon, as egregious as it was, and every time a president pardons someone, there's a problem with it. It's controversial. But it wasn't an act of obstruction into investigations of himself. So we can all hate it. We can all understand that Joe Arpaio is a terrible, just despicable fucking character. But it was legal under the system that we have. Donald Trump found his way into the presidency, and he has the power to pardon. So we just need to, we can grumble about it. We don't like it, but it's the way it is. Now, if he starts pardoning people preemptively even, Paul Manafort, Jared Kushner, Rick Gates, who's the other one who's pled guilty, Papadopoulos, in an effort to keep the investigation away from him, that is a problem, and legal minds are going to step in and do their work. And listen, everyone needs to understand, not to be lectury here, but that is just how my voice sounds. Robert Mueller is a good man, a noble man who is going to do the right thing here. And if there is a path to impeachment, and there needs to be a path to impeachment, he is going to refer charges to the House of Representatives to draw up articles of impeachment, and they're going to take care of biz.
So Rende wants to know, what do you worry the effect this administration has had even when he's out?
Yeah, I'm not going to be able to answer. Hang on, there's going to be noise. Was there noise?
No.
Oh, okay. I moved that because I had my foot on the mic. That's not an easily answered question at all. I mean, we could do an hour just on that, but I think that the effects are going to be felt. One, it's going to take a lot. What Donald Trump has done is unprecedented relative to following one administration to the next. So Donald Trump, like Obama, when he took office, he didn't make it his mission in life to reverse everything that George W. Bush had done, other than the economic policies that led to the Great Recession. Obama, by the way, I didn't vote for Obama. I just became a Democrat. So I come at this from what I think is a balanced perspective. Obama did not try to undermine and undo everything that George W. Bush did. And that is what we're seeing with Donald Trump, which means when we finally get this asshole out of office and we have a Democrat who has an idea about how to govern, because the Republicans clearly don't anymore, and I don't think they ever will again. Let's say we get Bernie Sanders. I know I don't want to talk about who's going to be president next, but let's say we get a Bernie Sanders. Let's say we get Martin O'Malley. We'll just, some milquetoast guy in there. Martin O'Malley, the former governor of Maryland, the former mayor of Baltimore. Let's say we get him in there. He's going to have to, out of necessity for the health of our republic, he's going to have to start going through and reversing policies of Donald Trump, which is something that doesn't normally happen. So I don't want to see a situation where every subsequent president spends the bulk of their time reversing the policies of the past president. I think that's a problem for our system of government. It shouldn't be that way.
So
we should have next question. We should have reasonable enough people in office that when you move from one president to the next, the swing doesn't have to be so drastic as to reverse every single action that was taken. And there's a danger of that with having a Donald Trump in office. Thanks, Rende. Rende, right?
Yeah, this is from Iron Knuckle B.
Iron Knuckle B.
Did you get a chance to read Fire and Fury?
I can't read, so I did not. I haven't read. I did a couple of those videos with like the excerpts. I don't think there's a ton of credibility in there. I'm starting to switch on it where I'm learning now that Michael Wolff burned a lot of bridges. So people, what?
I just want to pause real quick because some people are jumping on my ass for skipping their question.
Oh, okay.
And there's a lot of typing happening, so I'm going through trying to find the questions.
Okay.
And if I skip yours, I apologize. Do not take it as a personal slight.
Brittany is taking care of biz.
All right.
Oh, and one of the moderators is deleting spam. So thank you, TJ. The people who are promoting their fucking Instagram channel. Come on. That just clouds the waters. So was there a question or are you just covering your ass?
Yeah, you were talking about the Fire and Fury book.
Oh, yeah. So the Michael Wolff. So at the beginning, I thought, well, some of this is just super salacious. It's not accurate. It's not. There's no way that it's credible. And now I'm learning that what he did was he told a lot of these people, "You're off the record. Let's just have a conversation off the record." And then what he did was included all of that shit, which is terrible journalistically. It's a terrible standard. But he was on Bill Maher last night, and he's just like, yeah, who cares? It's what I did. I mean, it's ultimately, isn't that kind of the vibe you got, Brittany?
Yeah.
So it's so now I'm thinking maybe a lot of it is a lot more credible than I thought before if people felt like they were shielded by being off the record. So I don't know. I'm ever evolving in all of my opinions, in everything that I believe and that I feel. I'm open to new evidence, and last night was new evidence for me watching him say that. New question. I hope that answers your question.
Robert, what culpability, if any, do the Democrats have for the government shutdown? The libertarian publication Reason magazine is putting the blame on both parties.
Most certainly, it is both parties have a role to play. There were Republicans who voted for shutdown. There were Republicans who voted against shutdown. There were Democrats who did the same thing. So both parties are for sure to blame. We need to determine, was it justified to shut down the government over the Dreamers and the 800, almost 1 million people who were brought to this country imagine this, and I know I'm preaching to the choir here, but imagine if you were 10 years old and you were brought to this country illegally. It's against the law. What say do you have in that? If your parents wanted to bring you to France, let's say, and break into the country somehow, what say would you have as a 10-year-old? You're there. You have no memory or very little memory. No substantive memory of your previous country. If you've lived in that country for 20 years, 30 years, 10 years even, it is now your country. You're a Frenchman, you're a Frenchwoman. You're not, so these people who are brought from El Salvador or Mexico or wherever, they're Americans. They are contributing to our society. We need to embrace them. So ultimately, I guess we just need to understand or make a decision in ourselves. Is it worth shutting down the government as a political, as a puck, as a bargaining chip? Is it worth it to do right by these almost 1 million people? I think there's an argument to be made that it is worth it.
So this next question is about the missile alarm failure in Hawaii.
Yeah.
WB, what's your feeling on how Donald Trump's administration handled the problem in Hawaii with the missile alarm?
Well, I don't know that the Donald Trump administration did handle anything. he was silent on this matter. And if it weren't for his radical way of dealing with a credible military threat, we wouldn't have had that happen likely. They wouldn't have had to be in an alarm mode where we have worry. Like, for instance, here in I live in the Los Angeles area, and we don't have a missile preparedness arrangement. If I was to get an alarm on my phone, my military training would kick in, I guess, but we don't have designated places where we would go and hide in a basement. They clearly have some system, although it didn't seem to work that well. Look, ultimately what I'm saying is Donald Trump didn't do anything to help the situation. In fact, he brought on the situation on Hawaii. Because when did that happen? Under Obama or Bush or Clinton or the other Bush or Reagan or Carter? It didn't happen. We've been dealing with the North Korean government for 2 generations, 3 generations, almost 4 generations, and we haven't had that problem. Obviously, they weren't a nuclear power then, but anyway, thanks for the question. Hope that answers it.
So we have another question from Asif. Do you believe there are too many Christian fundamentalists in the government now? People, and I wrote gourmet, but people like Louis Gohmert. That's how you say that, right?
Louis Gohmert, yeah. Of course. If we had one in the government, it's too many. We certainly have too many. I grew up, this is not something I've gone into. We're going to learn all about Jesse D from these live streams coming forward. I'm going to start doing these a lot more often. I'm going to try to do at least two a month. I grew up an evangelical, wild-eyed. I grew up in a church where it was a lot of tongue talking, a lot of dancing, a lot of fundamentalist ideas about conservative Republican politics. And not that those two things have to go together, but often in white communities, they do. And I believe there is a danger to mixing religion and politics, and I mean any religion and politics. Because when you start doing that, what happens is the tenets of the faith start influencing how you run your society. Look at Saudi Arabia. Women just now are starting to be able to have jobs and be able to mingle in crowds with men, to be able to drive. And that is not because of culture. That is because of religion. And if you think it is because of culture, it's because the religion has influenced the culture so much that that's the case. Any religion should not be mixed with the government. That is excuse me, one thing that our founders did very, very well, and that is separating, putting a wall in between religion and the government. So if there's going to be fundamentalists in our government, they need to understand and respect the Constitution, that there's a separation between the two.
Okay.
I hope that everybody agrees with that, because I am very strident about that.
So there was another question that stood out to me because of your experience with bone spurs. You have them. Spurs. Yes.
I still have them.
And WB, this is the second question. Did you think it was funny that the doctor didn't test for bone spurs? Because during the press conference, he was asked.
He was asked.
Yeah.
No, I think it's funny. Do I think it's funny? Yes, I think it's hilarious. But do I think a president can't be president because he has bone spurs? You know, they certainly haven't gone away or gotten better if he had them as a teenager. And now, you know, because mine are a bummer. My bone spurs they're shitty. They hurt. But, you know, I could still, you know, do this. And, you know, my job's no more strenuous than President of the United States. Probably more strenuous. I mean, from a physical level. Anyway. But so, yeah, I guess ultimately, to answer your question, I think it was funny. Very funny.
But so having bone spurs, Jesse D, you were diagnosed with them, what, 2 years ago? 3 years ago? 2
or 3 years ago, yeah.
And
by the VA, by the way.
And do they still hurt you day to day? Yes.
Yes, they do.
So as you get older, you think it will continue to be a problem? Because what I'm getting at is for Donald Trump, it was so severe that it kept him from serving. And what happened, basically?
Yeah, I don't know. Let me say that if I was called, there's no fucking chance I'm going to get called back to service. But if I was called back to service, I would serve. Bone spurs and all, I would serve. It would not be a disqualifier. And I can tell you, I've watched him walk. His aren't as severe as mine. I don't know. This is the kind of stuff that pisses me off a lot because, well, he's a coward. He's a coward who acts like a tough guy. And, again, it's hypocrisy. Everything comes back to hypocrisy for me, and it pisses me off a lot because mine are a bomber. I have pictures of I've done videos where I've talked about his dodging the draft, and I've showed actual pictures, photographs of my bone spurs, and it looks like I have an eagle talon on the back of my heel.
So these are some comments, not questions.
Yes.
But Marlon says, I'm 100% Puerto Rican, so I don't even have a dog in this fight. But I think that the shutdown is justified until they take care of DACA.
Yeah, that is a reasonable position to take. It was Marlon?
Yes.
There's a reasonable position to take. And you're 100% Puerto Rican, but that also means you're 100% American. So you do have a dog in this fight. You absolutely... your opinion matters. Listen, if you said I'm from France, you don't have a dog in the fight. That's true. You wouldn't. You're Puerto Rican. You're American. You absolutely have a dog in this fight, and your opinion matters in this argument. And thanks for watching, Marlon.
So something that I want to hear about is what you think of like Joe Biden running. There's talk that he might run. What would be your opinion on Joe Biden, the age thing, what he had to say about millennials recently during an interview?
Oh, you put me on the spot.
Well, you can just
look. I like Joe Biden. I think Joe Biden would be able to, from an electable standpoint, Joe Biden would be able to appeal to those blue collar, Rust Belt, factory working, hard working white people kind of a thing. He'd be able to appeal to them, which is that same demographic that really is what ended up throwing a monkey wrench in to the Hillary Clinton side of things. I think age is a bit of an issue, except for the fact that Donald Trump is only like a year or two younger than Biden. So any way you shake it, we're going to end up having an old man running for president. I don't mean in the general, I mean overall. There's going to be some old men running for president. I haven't endorsed anybody. I haven't thrown my weight behind anybody. But I want to see more women. I want to see more women run for president. We need some new perspectives. We need some new outlooks on things. And not Hillary. Not Hillary. Please, Hillary, if you're watching, stay home. Stay in the woods. We got this. We'll figure somebody else. But Kamala Harris is my senator, and I think she's awesome. I think she is smart and capable. I don't know if I'd support her for president yet, but like I said, here we are talking about goddamn 2020. But Joe Biden he's stupid about millennials. The comments he made the other day about millennials whining about stuff is it shows an out of touch just about the demographics of how things are. Because right now we're at a period where baby boomers are up here as far as population is concerned. Am I still in the frame? Let me check.
There's a delay, so I can't see.
That's why I'm switching. Okay, here we go. So baby boomers are here, right? And they're starting to die because they're old. Right at the moment when millennials are starting to overtake them in population. So why would Joe Biden start shitting on millennials when they're going to be the chief portion of the population that you need to appeal to? Calling them whiners and calling them snivellers or whatever the terms, those weren't the terms, maybe whiners. That is a problem when appealing to a base. So anyway, that's all I have to say about that.
So Simon To what extent do you think the new religious freedom executive order will break down the separation of church and state?
I'm not wholly familiar with that executive order. I think what you're talking about is the Johnson Amendment. Let me know. I know the delay takes a while. But the Johnson Amendment is an amendment that makes it criminal for, not criminal, but you lose your tax exempt status if you endorse a specific candidate from the pulpit. And that's not just from the pulpit, that is as a nonprofit organization, and churches have a nonprofit status. So I know it is the hope of Donald Trump to be able to unfurl religious support for him, because he knows white evangelicals are largely going to support him, and their pastors are going to stand behind the pulpits and be crazy in their support of Donald Trump. Right now, he can't undo legislation because the Johnson Act was an actual legislation piece. But what he has done is direct the IRS to not enforce through stripping away of the 501c3 status. I don't know how in the weeds I'm getting here, but it could be a problem. But I think people are being very disenchanted very rapidly about Donald Trump. And by the time 2020 rolls around, it is going to be, that's why I say to hold off on who we're talking about running for president, because by the time that, look at the all of the insane shit that's happened in 1 year. Imagine what's going to happen in the next 3 years, and that's if he even sticks around and doesn't resign by that time. So we'll see. We'll see.
This is from Olga. Do you think that Donald Trump is handling the White House like his business or a business?
Wow, God, that's an awesome question. I think he's doing both. Well, no, I don't think he's running the Oval Office like a business, because you really can't do that. But he certainly is running things in a way that do promote and benefit his business. The emoluments clause of the Constitution, which doesn't allow presidents to profit from foreign governments, the case just got thrown out because the organization didn't have standing in court, which means they weren't affected. So that's still up in the air about whether or not that's going to come back to court. But Donald Trump is certainly profiting, and like they just had a 1 year anniversary party, and they're charging $100,000 to get into the thing. He's definitely profiting from the presidency, hand and fist, overwhelmingly profiting off the money. He's given away his salary, his $400,000 salary, and he's making that in spades, more than his salary. So he's profiting, and I don't know if it's the most important thing to focus on, but it's certainly a problem.
So John asked, is Melania a hostage?
No. Look, Melania has said some terrible things. She has voiced and echoed the racism that Donald Trump believes. I have little sympathy for Melania Trump. So.
All right.
That is it. That is all I have to say about that.
Okay. M. Knight Returns says, why can't you have it both ways? Why couldn't he be insane and evil? You can be crazy and have bad intentions. Well,
when I talk about Trump being crazy, I don't mean crazy like Dr. Evil. I mean crazy like someone with a diminished cognitive ability, like someone with Alzheimer's. Like, your old racist grandpa who talks bad about Mexicans or blacks or something because he's out of his mind. I don't mean crazy as in like a psychopath, where which one, you can't diagnose someone with psychopathy. I mean, Brittany has a master's degree in clinical psychology. Can someone with psychopathy be diagnosed? Is that a diagnosable thing?
There are measures that assess those traits that are associated with that. So, yes.
It technically can be.
Yes.
Okay. See, that's why I have Brittany here. I don't know. So, yeah, I'm talking about a different kind of crazy. Crazy is such a loose, undefined term. What I mean is like he's not cognitively capable of functioning as president. That's what I mean by that. So, anyway. And I guess it could be both. But listen, like from the reports of the book where they talk about he's unable to perform his duties and he's rambling and telling stories twice in a same conversation. He can't be president because he's not mentally fit. We watch him in interviews. We watch him give speeches off the cuff. He has it together enough to function. That's what I mean. We know we can watch him. Like there were reports about him not being able to read. We know he can read. He reads speeches. We know that. Let's not get caught up in the stuff that really won't matter and is not going to get us traction relative to getting him out of office. Let's focus on the things that we know. Let's focus on the things that are going to be able to be a focus of our concern to make change relative to who is in the government.
There's been a lot of talk on the thread about his latest approval rating being at 40%.
A little higher. It did go up, yeah. Some of that is probably the taxes. A lot of that is, listen, it's no mistake or coincidence that he's talking about the stock market constantly. They just talked about, some numbers were revealed that only 52%, just barely over half of America has money in the stock market. And you got to imagine that it's only the wealthiest among us who really, truly benefit on a day-to-day basis from the stock market. I don't benefit on a day-to-day basis from the stock market. So the stock market, the Dow Jones being at 26,000 doesn't affect my everyday life, but it does affect the everyday life of 1%. And that's really who Donald Trump is trying to govern. He's trying to artificially please the racists and white supremacists, and he's trying to effectively please his buddies, people like him, people who have a day-to-day interest in how the stock market is doing. Because it doesn't affect your factory worker. It doesn't affect your neighbor.
So Franklin asks, do you really believe the Democrats can take the House from the racist Republicans?
Yes, absolutely. There was a special election just the other day in Wisconsin, that was, I think, a 25-point favorite during the election for the Republicans, and it swung Democrat. We watched what happened. Some of it was because, in Alabama, some of it was because of the child molestation, the child molester who was running. But some of it is, a real effect of the angst and anger and disappointment and disillusionment of Donald Trump. I talk about angst and anger because of the Democrats, and then disillusionment because of the Republicans who were involved. People who did vote for Donald Trump, who are either not going to go to the polls or are going to switch their vote because they realize they made a mistake and he's not the guy they thought that he was. So yes, I absolutely have full confidence, more than full confidence, that we can flip the House. And it's a possibility of even flipping the Senate. And doing either one of those things is a big, big deal.
Someone asks if we can get a goddamn.
Goddamn.
And what do you think about North and South Korea flying under one flag during the Olympics? Pretty crazy.
Yeah, I don't. It for sure is crazy. It's a big deal. That's what I was saying. That I think that there might be some movement diplomatically for them, but you never know what's going on in the mind of Kim Jong-un. Of what's his objective? What's he seeking? So I don't know. I think it's great for the Olympics' sake. I think it's great, but I don't know. look, I'm not going to speak at length about things I don't know much about, and that's something I don't know much about, the relationship specifically between North and South Korea. So, sorry. I'm a dumb guy.
Kenneth wants to know how much confidence you have in Mike Pence as president.
I have confidence. I don't have confidence in the fact that he's going to do a good job, but I have confidence in the fact that he's a known quantity. He's going to play games the way we're used to things being played. He will be like a George W. Bush. I think he'll be more damaging and dangerous than a George W. Bush, because he is he's an evangelical, the likes of which we've really never seen as president. So he'd be a problem, but he would be a guy we know how to deal with. And where Donald Trump is, look, like for instance, if Mike Pence is a racist, he's a racist in that the way that every white president is a racist. Where Donald Trump is giving power to dangerous white supremacist ideals, and that's a problem. That's giving hope to these movements of the Daily Stormer types, the Richard Spencer types, the David Duke types. That's different, and that's a problem.
So Fight for 15 says, do you think Pelosi and Schumer should pass the torch and step down?
Yes. I am fucking done. Sorry, I am done with Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi. I think we need young blood, new ideas, more progressives, people who are committed to universal health care, to a single-payer system of health care in this country. Look, being new to the Democratic Party doesn't mean that I'm not aware of the party's history, and we need new leadership, new progressive leadership in the Democratic Party, real progressive leadership. So yes.
Michael Boyd wants
Did I say yes? Because I want everybody to know, yes.
What are you drinking?
I am drinking 4 Roses bourbon.
There you go. What kind of mug is that you're drinking it
That
out
is an I Doubt It with Dollemore podcast mug. Some of which can be purchased at dollemore.info. We're going to turn this into a commercial, aren't we?
Interesting, yeah.
You should put the link to the Patreon.
Okay.
I'll
do that.
Or TJ, if he's still around.
Yeah. Cindy says, how long do you think the shutdown will be? Sorry, just getting home. Love that you're going live. Thank you.
I'm going to be doing the live more often. I'm really hoping to do twice a week, twice a month, twice a week. Holy shit, I never get anything done. Plus, I'd probably be sunburned from all the crazy ass lights that I've got. I think the shutdown will last. Man, put me on the spot making a prediction. I would say fewer than 7 days, less than a week. In fact, I think they'll get this handled by Wednesday. That's ultimately my prediction. We'll see. Hold me to it. If I'm wrong, tweet at me at Dollemore.
So Aaron says, as a veteran, can you help me understand why he is so disrespectful to John McCain and yet seems to keep the support of the military?
Yeah, I don't know. I think it bothers me a lot. Let me say this. I think it does bother people, but you have to measure out. Well, one, you got to understand in the military that he is the commander-in-chief of the armed forces. So there's a hardwired thing about respecting the commander-in-chief. When I was in, you didn't, even if you had a criticism, you kind of kept it to yourself. So there's a weird programmed thing about being respectful and supportive of the president because he's the it's like talking shit about your commanding officer. You keep that quiet. So listen, I think if it were to come down to it, it's certainly a group of people he's liking to keep happy. He talks about the military, our great military, constantly in tweets. That's to keep one element of his base happy. Not that all of the military is racist, or even a preponderance of the military, or a large portion, but there are certain groups that he wants to keep happy. One is his white supremacist, white nationalist group, and then the other is the military, because it's a massive voting bloc. So I can't answer your question why they support so vociferously, but they do, and it's a bummer.
So there's been several questions about whether you plan to run for office.
No, I do not plan to run for office. I think I can affect more change from outside than from inside.
So just reading.
But thank you for all the support. I love seeing the Dollemore 2020. I need to make a T-shirt.
So one question, why do you think the middle class and poor believe that a rich guy like Trump knows what's good for you? He's never been poor or middle class. Yeah. Why did some baboon Americans vote for this clown?
It is disconcerting. Brittany and I spent a lot of time laughing about Donald Trump Jr. calling his dad a blue-collar billionaire. That is just fucking... That is an oxymoron, the likes of which has never been said before, a blue-collar billionaire. Donald Trump has never done a hard day's work in his life. It's not like he built himself up from nothing by the sweat of his brow and blisters on his skin, really turning nothing into a billionaire fortune. He was given, he says a small loan of $1 million, but at the time that was worth upwards of $10 million by today's standard. He was given a lot of money. And then he inherited about $300 million. I'm preaching to the choir here. I think our celebrity culture has caused a situation where people look up to Donald Trump because his name was known and they saw him on TV. And I think there's also an element to Republicans, or maybe just people in general, where they aspire to be like him. If he did it, I could do it too. If he's as dumb as he is, and I'm as dumb as I am, there's still hope for me. I could maybe make this happen for myself. And it's disconcerting. It certainly is. So we are, an hour and 10. That's all. I was planning to do about a half hour. I'll take 2 more questions, and then we're going to go. In the meantime, if you are thinking, if you've been on the fence about supporting the show, both podcasts, first of all, go subscribe to the podcast. We would love to have you twice a week. We do over an hour show twice a week on podcast. It's on iTunes and Google Play Music. It's on Stitcher. I doubt it with Dollemore. It's somewhere. I have no idea which side, but down here. Go find it on iTunes or Stitcher or Google Play Music. We'd love to have you listen to the show. Join our Patreon family if you're in a position to do so. If you appreciate what we do, you can go to dollemore.com/Patreon. You could, buy the t-shirts and the mugs, whatever. Support what we do here. YouTube is a bummer. This video itself is almost 100% going to be demonetized. So it's tough. The YouTube landscape is tough. But we'd love to have you support the show. We'd love to have you on board, taking part in our Google Hangout calls that we do. We really do. We've built a community. We love our listeners. We have a good time. And we'd love to have you on board. So anyway, last 2 questions.
So one of the questions, Jermaine, why aren't more politicians speaking up and out against 45, especially against his racist policies? I'm assuming he's referring to people like Paul Ryan, Mitch McConnell.
No, it's a problem. It really it's disheartened me about even a guy like Lindsey Graham, who I think is a decent man in his heart, but if there's a quote that I love. It's misattributed to a guy named Edmund Burke, and it's, "The only thing necessary for the triumph of evil is for good men to do nothing." I wholeheartedly believe that. Then in the absence of good people stepping up and doing something, bad shit is going to happen. And I'm disappointed in, well, I don't really expect much out of Mitch McConnell or Paul Ryan, but there are members of the Senate and of our government that I would expect more. Lindsey Graham is one. Look, I don't agree with everything he believes. I think he's a little too hawkish militarily. I think he's got too much of a Reaganomics idea about how the economy works. But I don't believe he's a racist. And I think he's balancing what he could get out of Donald Trump relative to policy too much. There needs to be qualified and respected members who step up and say, no more. This is unacceptable. And I hope that 2018, I have faith that 2018 will be that year that we're going to see a lot more members of the president's party who step up against the crazy shit that he says and does.
So the final question is from Kenneth. Do you think America's obsession with celebrity will be our downfall? Because here we are now talking about Oprah running for president.
Our downfall? No. But it is certainly a problem. It is most certainly a problem. Our celebrity culture is very weird to me because I don't idolize celebrities. People that I look up to are scientists and cultural figures, but I don't. I also don't hold a lot of stock in celebrity culture. So I don't know. I don't think it'll be our downfall. Let's do one more question because that wasn't a really long, fulfilling answer. But it's a problem. I definitely, it rubs me the wrong way. Do we have another one? If not, let's just wrap it. It's been a long time. I love you guys. I appreciate you. I want to do this more often so it's not just me, yammering to the camera on the Dollemore dailies. I need to do more conversation videos, a little longer, a little bit more in depth. There is a community button or a community section on the channel. Let's do this. First of all, if you love what I do and you enjoy the content, ring the bell so you get alerted. On the channel, there is a community, used to be like discussion tab. Now it's a community tab. I'm going to start posting more shit there. I'm going to start being involved, discussing things with you guys, mixing it up in the comments a lot more. Part of that is, like I said before, about not having as many trolls involved. It's going to be a lot easier to actually interact with my audience. So you guys are awesome, and I appreciate every single one of you. Thank you for taking time out of your Saturday evening to be here with me. And that's it. That is awesome. I hope to see, I'm stalling as I get ready to turn off. But I hope to see some of you guys following the podcast, subscribing to the podcast, maybe buying a mug or a t-shirt. Until next time, I'll see you guys. Bye-bye.